Hi, this is Tom Mitt with the Stories Project, and I'm here today with Sue Cannizzaro. And we're going to talk a little bit about Sue and her life, and we'll take it from there. As simple as that.
Okay.
Right? So, Sue, thank you for coming. Welcome
Thank you, Tom, for
to this.
having me.
Oh, thanks for being had, as they say. Right? So, thank you for joining in on us in the Stories Project. So, I want to start really simply and just ask you to tell us a little bit about you. Where were you born? And when, some of that early, kind of the simple resume type things.
Okay. I was born April of 1959 in Milwaukee at St. Michael's Hospital. Grew up most of my life in Brown Deer. Went to the school system there, graduated from high school in 1977. Have two younger sisters. Was a family of five with my mom and dad. So pretty much been a Milwaukee area resident my entire life, most of my life. Moved out to the Waukesha County area later on, but I still frequent the Milwaukee area.
So Waukesha County, it's not that far from Milwaukee. It's not like you moved to Nebraska.
No, not at all.
Like
Never
that.
left. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You like it around here?
I do. I like Waukesha County a lot, but I love the lakefront in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
So on any given summer day, if I have time, I will head on down to Bradford Beach. Got a little beach chair and just sit by the water. Yeah.
So, all right. So I know you had, your mom and dad were also born in Milwaukee, if
Correct.
I recall.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, my Opa and my Oma were both Austrian.
Austrian, right?
Yes. So Opa came over to the United States when he was 18.
Okay.
Ellis Island. Landed at Ellis Island. So he was born in Austria and changed his name to, I don't know what it was originally, but to William. So he was Bill Weber. And at some point met my Oma, my grandma, my mom's mom, Frida Strini, whose family was also from Austria. Now my Oma was born here, but one of her siblings stayed in Austria.
Okay.
So my Opa learned the trade of masonry work. And my dad, probably at the age of maybe 18, 19, got a job as a laborer through my Opa. And then my mom was on the job site one day and somehow, they met one another and then dated and ended up getting married. After my mom eventually, I think when we got a little older, she was a stay-at-home mom all, our younger lives. Went back to work. Where did she work? I think she went to a bank. She was a teller at a bank. She also worked downtown as a secretary. I remember that, too, for a while. And then I think she became a bank closer to home, so she didn't have to do the commute or freeway fly or bus thing. And, so she did that. Yeah, we lived in a small duplex until I was, I think, 4. And then bought a small home in Brown Deer. To which my dad, being a mason contractor now at this point, would add it on several times to it.
Yeah.
So what started as a small, probably 2-bedroom from what I can imagine, added on.
Did he have his own business?
He did.
He did?
Yeah, he did.
So he was in a good spot at that time.
Yes,
Lots of construction going on,
Oh,
too.
yeah. And then my folks sold the home in 1980, maybe. No, wait, let me think. Jesse was a baby. Probably 1983, closer to 1983.
Yeah.
And moved down to Florida, Cape Coral, Florida, 1983, and lived there until my dad's health declined a few years back.
And then you brought him back up here, right?
Yes, correct, yeah. So my folks, we would see them in the beginning. They would drive up maybe in the summer for a week. And then, of course, they got older, and that's a bit of a drive. And then they had a dog, and they didn't want to board the dog. So I would try to get down there at least once a year. We drove down with the kids, my 3 kids.
Were you closer to your mom or your dad? Were you closer to them?
I thought I was closer to my mom as a younger adult.
Yeah.
But I can definitely tell I think it was my dad.
More your dad?
I think more of my dad.
Looking back on it?
Yeah, looking back.
And what made you think that?
I think when my dad's health started to decline, I think I don't want to say the word bonded more, but I think he needed somebody he could vent to and open up to. And I just felt like, sadly, our relationship probably grew the most.
Now you have 2 sisters?
I have 2 sisters,
Two
yeah,
sisters,
both younger
right.
than me.
Right. And one was Jenny.
Yes, the youngest is Jenny, she's a nurse, and Kathy is the middle.
Kathy.
I think there's 2 years, Kathy's 2 years younger than I am, and Jenny would be 6 years younger than I am.
Okay, so Jenny got the worst of it then,
Yeah,
probably,
yeah.
from you.
Not anymore. We've more than made up for it.
Made peace.
So my sister Kathy and her husband Jack
Mm-hmm.
got married, and their firstborn was born on December 24th and named Nicholas.
Perfect.
Yeah. So they lived in Menominee Falls, bought a home in the Falls, and then they also, several years after Nick was born, had a daughter named Samantha. And Sam was maybe 2. So anyways, one fall of the year, Nick became ill. Flu-like symptoms was what my sister was told by the doctor initially. So he had missed a couple of days of school and wasn't improving and getting worse, so ended up taking him in on a Saturday to Children's Hospital, where they had run some tests, and he was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and lived very, prior to that, a very active life, always in sports and, at school, and had friends, and so this came on quite suddenly. So they, had to do surgery to try to remove it. And we knew prior to the surgery that there will be deficits when he recovers. And they really, I don't recall pinpointing anything as far as prognosis and timeline.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that it wasn't a cure. This was to extend his life if we could.
And he was 10 at the time.
Yeah, he died when he was 10. Yeah, so he actually, would require some, assistance at home after the surgery, as far as feeding, and probably would be limited in mobility.
Mm-hmm.
And these were all, what the doctors had thought would happen. But the fact is that after surgery, Nick really never awoke. So he was in a coma for, that 1 week. I remember at Children's him being in a coma, and he never really regained consciousness on his own. So we never were able to even take him home. Passed away, age of 10.
That's probably the other parent's nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah. It was gut-wrenching. Yeah, our family's quite close, and it's so hard. It's so hard. We haven't forgotten him. We learned to live with it, I guess, but it's sad. It's just such a sad, sad loss, but amazing we got through it. But, we remember Nick. I think of him often.
Now, Jenny's the other sister.
Correct.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's married?
Yes, she's married to Bob. They had 2 children, John and Allie, my niece and nephew.
Mm-hmm.
Allie's in Colorado right now. She lived out there for quite a few years, and John's in town. My sister and Bob got divorced, and then she dated another gentleman named Chris, and Chris and Jenny had a son, Jacob. So Jenny has 3 children.
Okay.
John, Allie, and Jacob. And then that relationship fizzled. And she met Rick, and he lived in Iowa, probably a year ago, moved up here to Wisconsin, not back to Wisconsin, because he's from Illinois as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they just got married. That's right.
Well, good for them. Okay, so did you have any best friends back then?
Oh, yes.
When you were little?
When I was little, yes. I had, in grade school, I remember Holly Hoffman.
Holly Hoffman.
Yeah, she was kind of a chum of mine. Had a lot of friends, but And then, of course, the neighborhood kids, too. Back in those days.
Yeah. This was in Brown Deer, then.
This was in Brown Deer.
Yeah.
And, you went home from school, changed your clothes, and headed out the doors and just, hung out with the neighborhood kids.
Were you one of those kids that stayed out until the lights came on, or
pretty
mom
much until
screamed out
mom.
the door?
And back in the day, there was one family that I know had a bell that they would ring. My mom would tend to probably go to the end of the driveway and call out our names. We weren't that far away,
No.
but in somebody else's yard. But it was a lot of outdoor activities and stuff like that.
So what did you do when you were a little girl back then with your friends?
Pierced each other's earrings,
Oh, no kidding.
ears, with potatoes and needles unsterilized.
Oh, fun.
There were tons of swing sets.
Did you do that? Did you sneak in doing that?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
'cause
yeah.
Mom and Dad would not have gone for that, right?
No.
How old were you when you did that?
I was probably 12. My sister would have been, and Cheryl Datson, who lived next door, was probably 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Debbie, her sister, was a little older, so she was a piercer.
Oh, she was the perpetrator. So what did Mom and Dad do when you found out about it?
I really don't remember. I don't think anything, because I still have pierced ears to this day. So, and a couple of my neighbors had pools, so in the summertime we would swim.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the winter?
Ice skating, Brown Deer Park. We would walk. We did a lot of walking and biking back when I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
There was no having your parents drive you around.
No.
You wanted to do something. You just.
Do you think we've lost something now because of that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And the miles we would put on. We would really walk.
Yeah.
Long distances, or bike if the weather was permissive. But Brown Deer Park had the best ice skating rink.
Really?
Yeah, they had the pavilion with the fire, and just it was great. It was great. I loved it. And then, of course, they built Northridge. So when we got a little older, we would bike up to Northridge. And I can remember, actually, one of my neighbors, Pam Erdl, their family moved to Brookfield.
Okay.
So we lived roughly on 45th and Bradley Road.
Mm-hmm.
Pam's family bought a home in Brookfield on Capitol Drive, right just east of Calhoun. And I live near there now. I go by there twice a day when I go to work. So I remember the ride. And
Back then, that was all open farm country.
it was a lot of open, and I couldn't have been more than 12 or 13, and then some of the other neighbor kids and my sister Kathy might have come along. We got on our bikes one day. I'm sure we told our parents, and we biked from Brown Deer to Pam's house in Brookfield.
Wow.
We were really young kids. I think about it now and the stuff we were allowed to do, and there were no parent chaperones or
No. Now you get arrested if you let the kids play in the playground down the street alone.
Oh, yeah. So, we did, there wasn't a lot to do, but you just made up stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We'd go to movies occasionally or bike to the pizza place and have lunch, that kind of stuff.
What was your favorite thing you used to do with your friends?
Favorite thing?
Like when I was a boy at that time and that age,
Yeah.
and we're not that far different, that age, we played a lot of kick the can, actually.
Yeah, we did that.
Mm-hmm.
I think just playing, especially when it got darker out, like Ghost in the Graveyard, and played outside. I can remember when the riots were going down in Milwaukee.
Oh.
And then we had curfew that summer. So you had to stay in your yard after a certain time.
Right.
And so we would do that, and, but we weren't, of course, stressed by it or anything or concerned about it, because we really probably didn't understand
Right.
what was really taking place. But I do remember being outside a lot in the summer. Flashlight tag, those kinds of things,
I don't know that one.
Yeah. Well, because it's dark, so, just anything you could do outdoors.
So you just shine the flashlight at someone who's at the game?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Barefoot, and I always ran barefoot.
Barefoot.
And we used to cut through yards, of course, and Mr. Lassay lived 2 doors to the south of my folks' home, and he had a garden, and I remember running through, and I stepped on something. It was not good. And it was one of those metal stakes that was sticking out of the ground, barefoot.
Ouch.
So, and it was back then, I probably didn't even mention it to my parents because you were always, get in trouble.
Right.
While you're running around outside without, shoes on your feet, especially at nighttime. But
Luckily, nothing serious came out.
no, I still have my foot. I played outside a lot, and I can remember railroad tracks and a creek. And we would run alongside the train, holding hands, try to keep up with it. And I mean, not from much of a distance.
Yeah.
And it's quite amazing when you think about the danger involved with a fast locomotive.
Yes.
And you're just running right alongside it. I mean,
On the gravel.
on the gravel,
tracks.
and it's slanted, and
yeah.
and got, glitter and whatever else. But yeah, that was probably not safe to do. We had a creek near the house as well that would kind of freeze over a little bit. And then in the spring of the year, of course, with the heavy rains, the water level would rise. And dumb stuff, running on the ice chunks. And there was one time I slipped. I was down there with Michael McGovern and Bobby Dodson, two of the neighbor boys.
Yeah.
And running, trying to jump from this chunk of ice to the next. And it's really roaring.
Yeah.
And I did slip. I fell. I went under the ice chunk. And I'm being pushed. I can remember being pushed downstream. And Michael and Bobby were running along the outside on the bank, trying to get me.
Trying to save you.
Exactly. And I would come up periodically, and I mean, I remember eventually I got out of it, and riding home, wringing wet, and it was cold out, wringing wet, sneaking in the house, my blue Schwinn, sneaking in the house to take a shower so that my folks wouldn't find out.
Did they ever?
No, because I was hoping not, because it would have been odd for me to, why is she taking a shower at 2 in the afternoon? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I don't know what I did with the wet clothes, but I probably threw those out or something. I hid a lot, so.
Do you think that helps make you who you are? Like those episodes of jumping on ice and almost dying, basically. And
yeah, I mean, it was.
Does that help
hindsight,
shape you a bit, do you think?
Probably, because I never would have done it again.
Yeah. Do you think that kids today, or the world today, is a little bit too protective?
I know I am.
Yeah.
Towards my kids, and first of all, I think the world today is a lot different than it was when we were growing up, as far as the dangers that are out there. Crime, and maybe it's because we hear about it now, whereas back in the day, unless you read the paper or sat down to read the news, you didn't know.
Right.
But I don't think that. I think, that it's more rampant as far as some of the evils that are out there in society. I can tell you that, my 2 grandsons that I see frequently, I don't dare let them out of my sight. There was an incident about a week or 2 ago. I was babysitting, and I took the boys to the Pettit Center for their weekly Thursday night ice skating. And Will was in this group, and Fitz was in another group. And, everybody, all the spectators stay on this side of the ice.
Yeah.
And after class, I found Fitz, and I'm like, well, where's Will? Because, they were coming towards me, but Will was not. Well, you get a sinking feeling inside that I can't really describe, but it isn't pleasant.
Every parent knows that feeling.
Yeah, and what had happened was somehow he conned his instructor into taking him around the oval 1 lap.
Oh.
And which she did, holding his hand. And
how old was he then?
He's 5. And but then I saw them further down, and then I figured out what was.
Yeah.
But for that moment where I couldn't zoom in on him, it's scary. It is scary. And it's not scary like, oh my God, my daughter's going to kill me scary. It's scary because you genuinely don't ever want anything to happen to them.
No, that is a nightmare, isn't it?
It is. It is, yeah. So, I get why if people are more protective, I can understand why,
Mhm.
and I'm sure I'm the same way, and it's just because of the fear you don't ever want anything bad to happen, you know.
Sure.
So
Okay. So, when did you start noticing boys?
I don't know, maybe middle school.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Do you remember any of the boys that you did notice?
There was one in particular. I think I was 7th or 8th grade, so I was probably a little bit of a late bloomer. I'm trying to remember. Back in the day, we would just pass notes in school. I don't know if they probably don't even do that. Probably
That's
texting,
texting now, yeah.
texting, but whatever. Yeah. So I don't even know how it came about, but we kind of like, I don't want to say hooked up, but became a couple.
Yeah.
But we never, I mean, all that meant back then was that you passed notes. I mean, we never really, to my knowledge, I don't recall like went to a dance together or went out or
Yeah.
anything, or I don't remember going to his house. I certainly wouldn't have brought him back to my house.
Do you remember your first big boyfriend? Your first
Probably in
crush?
high school.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
another Tom. And then I ended up marrying a Tom. So
You
I
did,
don't
yeah.
something in the name of Tom.
And I'm Tom, so
I know
I'm
that.
taken. Sorry.
Right? Yeah. So yeah, we were a couple for I would say couple years, maybe 2 years, year and a half to 2. Only because I can remember the dance, the homecoming, and then there's
Sure.
prom.
Mhm.
And I do recall going to prom twice with him.
Did you have any best friends in high school?
Audrey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tell me about Audrey.
Audrey, I met probably sophomore year. Can't really remember where she lived. We would, go back and forth, hang out, bike down to Bradford Beach,
Mm-hmm.
Doctors Park, concerts. We went to one of my first concerts was Chicago down at the old arena,
Okay.
and we went alone, and one of us drove. I think I did. So I was probably 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Big Chicago fan. Hung out afterwards. I got Peter Cetera's sweaty towel, and she got a guitar pick, I think. Yeah, we weren't groupies or anything, but I mean, we were in no rush to get home.
That's funny.
Yeah, so.
They opened a bar outside of Chicago. It was called Chicago.
Okay.
I used to go there when I was younger.
Okay.
Way back when.
Yeah.
This is like early disco kind of days.
Oh, yeah.
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 There's a lot of that.
You and I went through the disco era,
We
too.
did, yes. So I'm so sorry. Mhm. Although that was a lot of fun, though. Were you a disco dancer? Did you like going out dancing doing that?
I hung out, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when we were younger, legal age was 18 to drink.
Yeah.
And then by the time they changed it to 21, you and I were already at that age. I went out to the clubs on the weekend. And then actually, I was working full-time as a secretary for a stock brokerage firm.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did cocktail waitressing after
Oh,
that job
okay.
at, I think it was called PJ's Circus up near Northridge. So they had that silver ball.
Oh, the disco
ceiling,
ball. Yeah,
the disco
right.
ball,
The mirror
and Donna
ball,
Summer
right.
playing all night long. And I did the cocktail waitress thing for a while. Probably not all that long.
Okay, now you married Tom
Yes.
in 1980.
1980, yes.
Right. And then from there, you had 4 kids?
3 kids.
3 kids, that's right.
Mhm.
3. Okay. And that's Jesse, Kelly,
Mm-hmm.
and let me see if I remember.
Tommy.
Yeah, Tommy, that's right. I should remember that one. So tell me a little bit about that. Tell me how did you meet Tom, and
I was
how did that all
working
happen?
as a secretary back during the cocktail waitress disco days
Okay.
for a stockbroker, Lowy and Company.
Uh-huh.
And Tom had a broker. This is before online trading,
Mhm.
well before online trading.
Yeah.
We did it the old-fashioned way. And he was, I would say, pretty constantly in Gordy's office. Gordy was the stockbroker.
Mm-hmm.
Every day. And he had just started his own plumbing company and had a handful of plumbers working for him. So he would sit in the office and trade stocks. He was big into the stock market. Still is. And so I worked as a secretary and, would just have to, I would come across them, obviously.
Sure.
Or if Gordy had it was back in the day when he needed a letter drafted and you did shorthand, so you wrote the letter in shorthand and then you went and typed it up. So I was in and out of Gordy's office throughout the day. So that's how we met. And then we just started dating and then got married.
What was it about Tom that attracted you?
I'm not really sure. He was very nice. He was very nice. Yeah. It was annoying that he was in Gordy's office all the time, but it was like get out and get a job, which he had.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he had plumbers working for him, and they did have pagers back in the day. So.
Oh right. Mm-hmm.
So the beep would go off, and I think it would project a phone number, and he'd have to go call it.
Yeah, back
this
then
was
the
before the
beepers-
cell phones. And I would say maybe within a year got married,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken.
Pretty quick.
Yeah, pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Or planned on it or something along those lines. Yeah. Yeah, and then we actually got married in Las Vegas.
Oh, with all his stock winnings.
Yeah, not really. No, not really. Actually, and then we went to Cancun for a short honeymoon, and I remember American Airlines, they canceled the flight, and then they lost our luggage. It was a bit of a fiasco, actually, on the way home. So we lived in Shorewood, and we rented an apartment for a short period of time on Oakland Avenue, and then I got pregnant with Jesse. I'm trying to remember. We moved out of that apartment. He bought so he had bought, and prior to us getting married, a 4-family apartment building.
Oh.
Not far from Shorewood on Vienna Avenue.
He bought the building.
Yeah, he bought the building. So he had a 4-family apartment building because it had a big detached garage or barn.
Yeah.
So for all of his supplies, plumbing supplies and whatnot. But he actually had all those units rented out. So thinking back, one of the tenants moved out, and we took that apartment. We got out of the apartment in Shorewood and moved over to Vienna. And then Jesse was born in 1981, June of 1981.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually we moved upstairs to a little bigger place when Kelly came along a couple years later, and then Tommy. So we lived, with the 3 kids there. And moved out of that location in 1988, bought a home in Delafield, city of Delafield. It's a Heartland mailing address. Bought a nice home, 5-bedroom, 2.5-bath, 3-acre lot.
Nice.
It was nice. It was nice. Dead-end street. Vienna was a dead-end street, too, which is kind of interesting. So the kids always lived on a dead-end street when they were growing up. And I moved out of the house maybe around 2017 or so. So the kids all grew up there, went to the Arrowhead School District, and
well, you and Tom were married, 38 years or so?
something like that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So got divorced a few years back. But I'm still, it was just there this week. I go out there frequently.
Yeah.
Probably 3-4 times a month almost. Closer to 2 to 3. Yeah. Got to help him out with his business still. And
right. So what did you and Tom do for fun?
he was self-employed.
Yes. So there was no fun?
There was, he was kind of on call pretty much 7 days a week.
Yeah.
At this point in time, the plumbers that he had hired, he was pretty much on his own.
Yeah.
He went back to, being the sole plumber. So,
what happened there?
I think there's a little situation with the union, plumbers union, dragged us into federal court.
Oh.
Yeah, and then there was the Balistrieri family that came before the plumbers union. Yeah, so I've been in and out of court, federal court.
Tell me more.
Well, Tom got taken to federal court with the Balistrieris first, now that I think about it.
And what was that about?
That was because he did plumbing work for the Balistrieri. Yeah. And John and Joe Balistrieri. I don't know if you know the name.
I do.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So because he did plumbing work. Well, the feds had wiretapped a lot of areas, and one of them was a table. Can't think of the name of the restaurant, but we used to go there once in a while. Anyways, it was for insurance fraud. That's what it was. So he was accused more with John than with Joe, but I can remember when the trial went on, it was Joe went first, and then John, and then Tom, trying to get the balustrades for, insurance fraud, and mail fraud, and everything that goes along with all of that.
So the feds were after them.
Yes, yeah, and Tom was
just caught up in the
sweep? He was linked in because of stuff that was said on the tape, and I remember one thing was John telling Tom, regarding a bill, well, just make it up. Well, meaning just do it, because Tom did things by hand. He would write down the bill, and it wasn't like he wasn't doing the work at the building, or the repairs for the insurance. It was just a nightmare, and that was early on in our relationship. Actually, I found out I was pregnant with Kelly during jury selection for that trial.
Oh, no kidding.
No kidding. So
how did you feel about that when you found out about that?
Well, I mean, I wasn't thrilled about it by any means, but I'm sure I was worried about it. But I guess you just figured it's out of my, there's nothing I can do to change it. Just got to let it play out and hope that it turns out okay. Well, John ended up going to federal prison. I think Joe did too. And, but Tom was exonerated.
Well, good.
So, yeah, let's kind of get through it and try to forget about it, I guess.
Well, that's good.
A little stressful. And then Plumbers Union took him to court, and that ended up just being a big mess. And never signed a contract with the union, but I think he did employ some union plumbers.
Yeah.
So after all of that, going back to federal court and getting that behind us, I think he just probably figured, I don't need this.
Right.
So I'm just going to do it.
So that's when he just said,
so back to sole
I'm
proprietor.
just going by myself.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it makes some sense.
Yeah, it was just, So, so getting back to your initial question.
Yeah, sure.
For fun, we really didn't, because he was, hardworking, worked long hours, always available to his customers, weekends, holidays.
Mm-hmm.
But we did, I know we did go down to see my folks in Florida. I know he came once or twice for sure, and I may have gone with the kids separate of that. Oh, and then there was one other trip we took. We drove out to Arizona to visit my aunt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Kelly would have been 16. Jessie stayed home. I think we had 2 dogs at the time, so she was probably close. I think she was still a senior in high school, but 18. So
okay. So tell me a little bit about the kids.
About,
Jessie, Kelly, Tommy.
Let's see.
Who was the toughest one to deal with? Or who was the easiest? Either way.
I think Kelly was. No, I can't. I mean, Kelly initially was my toughest, and then Tommy, and I'm thinking more teenage years.
Yeah.
As little kids, they were great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were great.
They were getting in trouble.
Very mindful, could take them anywhere. Could take them to decent restaurants even. They had good manners. They were, good in school, active in activities, sports.
Yeah.
Neighborhood kids, Girl Scouts. Kept me going. I mean, I worked alongside Tom at this point in the office, doing his book work, but then it kind of like, can you come to the job and deliver parts, or can you stay on the job and give me a hand? So learned eventually how to solder and would help actually on the job, but, and then rounding up the kids after work, get them to soccer, get them to baseball, get them basketball, volleyball. I mean, they were field hockey, ice hockey then, because then Arrowhead built this ice rink. Well, now Jessie had to do ice hockey, so it's like.
Was Jessie the more wild of the 3?
She was, I don't know if wild would be the right word. She always had to, have her hand in everything.
Yeah.
She was, whereas, they were all very active though. Mm-hmm. I mean, they kept me jumping. Now you have to remember, Tom's his own boss, right?
Yeah.
So I'm the one that's carting them around, and getting sucked into coaching. So it was just busy, you're working, you got 3 acres to cut. Now,
by this time, what were you working with Tom at that point? Okay, so when did When did that stop? You know, you stopped working for a time and you
Oh, that would
started
have
going
been,
into what you're doing now.
yeah, pretty much. Well, Tom had a stroke, and
Right.
then he, once he was home and he recovered and everything, he was still working. And I think it was pretty much like around that point where it was like, I just kind of got up one morning and said, I'm going to be a nurse. Tried to figure out, okay, what do I do? How do I do this? Still worked with him when I was going to school.
Yeah.
So I think it was always, I was in my mid 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn how to use a computer. I don't know what Word is, you know. So I went to WCTC and got my associate over there. Went there full time to get that. Graduated in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up working for Pro Health. I've been with the same department ever since. 5 years later, I decided, got a little nudge from a coworker, a nurse, go back for your bachelor's. So I did. I loved learning and went to Concordia in Mequon
Mm-hmm.
and got my bachelor's degree in nursing. And it was like a 2-year program while working full time.
Yeah.
So just love it. My only regret with nursing is that I didn't do it earlier. I think I would have loved to have. There's such a variety of things you can do with that degree.
Well, and there's a big demand for it.
And now, and there always has been, but now even more so than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, still continue to work.
So let me ask you this, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but you were married to Tom for 38 or so years.
Correct.
And so what happened?
I think people use it often. We grew apart. Or I actually probably, I don't know. That's a good question. We became more, not even roommates, because I think roommates would still interject and converse.
Yeah.
We, just kind of, I think I got smart way too late.
What do you mean by that?
And don't get me wrong, he's a wonderful father and he was a good husband for many years, but I guess you just some stuff grows old.
Yeah.
Being belittled or whatever, and it's kind of, do it my way or don't do it at all kind of a thing.
Would you say kind of faded for you, or?
Yeah, faded. Yeah, but just kind of like, I don't need to take this crap.
Okay.
If I want to do it this way, I want to do it this way, and then I wanted to sell the house because it became my kids are all out of the home. And taking my weekends because I'm cutting grass, spending the whole weekend cutting grass because it takes a long time to do 3 acres. And,
oh yeah, sure.
And we've outlived our stay here. He didn't want to move, and I wanted to move, and and maybe going back to school and getting a job and enlightened me and more to life than just at this point we were living in separate bedrooms and really hardly communicating at all. Now, we weren't fighting. It wasn't anything like that, but I'm just kind of living under the same roof but living apart.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I understand. When I think about my life, I think about the timeline of people's lives. There's kind of milestones like along the way. A birth, a marriage, a parent passing. Those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
Some are great, some are not so great. Do you have any milestones like that for you when you look past? You know what I mean?
I think milestone for me would be, of course, having my kids.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Having them, being grateful, that they're healthy.
Yeah.
And that they're pretty much, they lived life to the fullest as young kids. Tried to give them all the opportunities that I could offer them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To find their niche. And then with that, you start. That's a milestone.
Are there any of those that you think of and you say, when you look back at them now, you say, that's when my life changed?
I would say that's when my life changed.
Mm-hmm.
Was when I started having kids.
Having children, yeah.
And
A lot of people would say that.
that's when my life changed, when I went back to school late in life to be a nurse. Mm-hmm.
So there's the pre-child Sue.
Yeah.
There's the post-child Sue.
Yeah.
And then there's the new job or new life choice.
Yeah, I
Sue.
think, yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that was it. And then after that would be having grandchildren.
Okay.
That's a biggie to me.
You enjoy being a grandma?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Tell me about your grandchildren a little bit.
Well, I actually have 4 grandsons.
Okay.
The older 2 I don't see. And they, I think they'll be 8 and 6 by now, Teddy and Truman. So they were my son, Tommy, and his, they ended up getting married, his wife Tiffany's children. And then that relationship ended. Them? No. So that relationship ended and they divorced and she moved up north.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And I, throughout the divorce, would still see them, the proceedings. And then part of the divorce decree was that I would continue to be able to see them and that their dad could see them, but I had to be there as a supervisor. So I did see them after they divorced, on and off, maybe a handful of times during the year. And then Tommy, sadly, terminated his parental rights.
Oh.
So
he was the dad?
He was the biological father, correct?
No, he was the one that couldn't see the kids alone.
Yeah.
Unless it was a supervised
correct.
visit.
Yes.
Do you mind asking what was
No,
that
not
about?
at all. So an alcoholic and couldn't be reliable. I mean, I didn't blame her for imposing that restriction by any means.
Yeah.
I didn't want it either. So,
But then he later gave up his rights.
Yes, he ended up terminating. She took him back to court, and he ended up just, I don't know, for whatever reason. I can't even explain how to rationalize somebody's brain power, the thought process behind all of that. So in terminating his parental rights to just cut ties with, get rid of her, and sadly then the boys.
And the boys' names are?
Teddy.
Theodore.
And Truman.
Okay, now let me stop and ask you a question. They are going to see this video one day.
Yeah, my daughter has her. Yes, my daughter will see to it.
Yeah,
yes,
that's fine.
Yeah.
And how old are they now?
8 and 6.
Okay, so at this age, it's probably not going to mean much to them. When they get older, they're going to look at this video, and it's going to mean something more to them.
Oh,
What do you
sad.
want to tell them?
Oh, that's sad because I just think of the time. I mean, even now, it's only been a couple years since I've not been able to see them.
Yeah.
And despite trying to continue to see them, and going as far as to hire an attorney and take her to court to see them, which last year the judge didn't rule in my favor, and I knew that going in that this is going to be an impossible feat, but there was nothing I could do except for that, to try and get them back in my life. Not in my son's life, back in my life. I raised Teddy. I didn't raise him, but I contributed highly to raising him since he was born.
Yeah.
And after he was born, I actually went from full-time nurse to part-time after he was born so that I could pick him up on Thursday night and keep him until Sunday night.
Okay.
Because she worked the weekend shift, and at the time Tom was a firefighter, so 20 on for that schedule is just crazy.
Yeah.
So I took care of Teddy for those first couple of years, almost half the time. And he was my first grandson.
So what do you want to tell him? You got to make believe we're 10 years from now. He's grown to full manhood.
How hard.
What do you want him to know?
How hard I fought for him. This is gonna send me into tears, but that's okay. I worried, and I told the attorney this. I said, and the judge and the guardian ad litem, and you people don't understand the repercussions of not letting me see them. If they want to see me, I don't want to force myself on them. There's, you can never have too much love, no matter who it comes from, I don't ever want them to feel like we abandon them. And when I say we, I mean, his aunts, Jesse and Kelly, and his grandpa, that my family did not abandon you. I tried legally as everything I could to stay a part of your life. But I pray for those boys every night. I think of them all the time. I hope they know that the love that you have for a grandchild is unbelievable. It is always there, even though several years have gone by. It's never faded.
Mm-hmm.
I miss them more than I can put into words. Love them. And I'm just really, I get sad about it because my life with my grandparents when I was growing up are some of the fondest memories. We didn't do a lot, but spending time with them and having them in my life it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
Kids today, and I was the same way, didn't realize it at the time.
Right.
When you get to be older and you look back on your lives and your accomplishments and what made you happy and what were some of your hardships, the memories that you have from that are just instilled in you forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something you can only realize once it happens to you.
It's a special thing being a grandparent, isn't it?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it is totally. I can have the worst day and go to pick up Jesse's kids, who I do see frequently, aged 5 and 3, the 2 grandsons, Will and Fitz. And I can be just really stressed and tense and picking them up from school and lugging them into the car and hauling them into their car seats, and the stress will just melt off of your shoulders. It's just the most remarkable thing. And the questions that they come up with and the chit chat. Laughter is the best medicine. And really, it's such a precious age. It's just, and the thing about grandkids is, they do grow up.
Yeah.
And then they get to be 12, 13, 14 and older. And yeah, you know what? Now they want to be with their friends. So you have to really, I think the important time is, when from newborn newborns are just my favorite thing. I love infants. To age maybe, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then you kind of lose them.
Yeah.
You don't stop seeing them, but you kind of lose them.
Well, isn't the same thing true for children, not just grandchildren, though?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. But as a parent, you're always 24/7.
That's true.
Even though, they're off doing their own thing and you're still involved with them a little bit more. But I
always thought the job of a grandparent was to take the grandkids home, sugar them up, get them all crazy, and turn them back.
I'm pretty good about it, but yeah, the word treat is always used in my presence. One treat, Oma, one treat.
And you are Oma.
I'm Oma.
Good for you.
Mm-hmm. To Teddy and Truman, I was Omi. Teddy couldn't say Oma, it just came out Omi, so that just stuck. So we just left Omi. Yeah.
So now with them, same question. When they're older, because they're now at an age still that they're still kind of young, right?
Yeah, right.
And so, that whole relationship isn't, like you were just saying, isn't the same when they get older and they start thinking about that a little bit more and a little bit. And, maybe you won't be around anymore.
Right.
What do you want to tell them?
I don't know that Truman will even remember me.
Uh-huh.
Because he was maybe 2 the last time I saw
So
him.
maybe this is your first introduction to him. You're
Could be.
you're still going to be who you are.
Yeah, that could be.
What do you want to say to him?
I took care of, once Truman was born, I continued watching the boys.
Yeah.
So would pick up both boys on Thursday night and then bring them home Sunday night. Eventually ended up going to their mom's house and my son's home to watch them. Hauling a bassinet in the wintertime. It was just like too much.
Yeah,
Diaper bags,
yeah.
formula, breast milk. It was like, okay, why don't I just come over by you at
Right.
6 a.m. and then I'll stay and go, so 6 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Yeah.
hang out at her house. So it became a little easier. I was getting older at this point too.
Sure.
And I just would like for him to know that I didn't love you. That I loved you. I cherish the moments we had.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry that I wasn't in his life the way, even though Teddy's relationship with me was very short as well. To me, it was just way too short. Truman's was even less. But I hope they know how we miss being a part of their lives and their growing up, and that I wish there was more that I could have done or that we could have done, my family could have done, in order to make that happen. But it's, sadly, sometimes things are out of our control. And despite putting up a fight and trying to get the law to see it differently, I can't change the statutes. It's unfortunate for grandparents alike out there that, I've heard stories from my attorney, it's just a fact of life. And the parent has pretty much the final say.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry that, I don't want to, I just really, I wish we could have time together, and we can't. So because of that, I want them to know how much they were loved and missed, and they have a whole family over here that, maybe when they see this, they'll be old enough to, and curious enough to reach out. It's sad to have missed this much time, but it doesn't mean that you can't start somewhere.
Right.
So to Teddy and Truman, I say you have two cousins, Will and Fitz, and an aunt and uncle and another aunt, and my sisters who love you, and it's never too late to reach out.
Is there anything that you want to add?
I just want my family to know how much I cherish them. It's funny, as you get older, you really, I think, kind of tune in on what's important.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, I know I personally, I don't sweat the small stuff anymore. The highlight of my life has been always my family, be it the three sisters and my mom and dad, my grandparents, having my own family, raising those children, and then having, I was blessed with grandsons on top of it all. To just embrace each other.
Mm-hmm.
And things have become, I see more people stressing about small stuff that really doesn't matter, but I don't try to belittle it on them. I get that you're worried about this or that or whatever, but life is too short. Don't waste it worrying all the time, because most of that stuff you can't control. And I get it, you want to be conscious of it, but don't let it bring you down and impede your ability to move on and do things, get out. I would love to travel. Well, hopefully someday I will, to see the world, because we're only on Earth for a very short amount of time, in hindsight, compared to
doesn't look short when you're little, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So just hug more, laugh often, have faith, know that beyond our lives here, physical lives here, you know, there's something waiting that's just,
Okay. I can get that.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Tom.
Thank you.